Last week, Will started to record the sermon, video record. We've always done these audio versions of the sermons. We put them online, and a lot of people will listen to them. We've had messages from all over the country and the world, actually, people who listen to video messages. Well, last week, he records the first one with my face on it, and we get a message from North Carolina. He's a man, I don't know, he said he's a young man. I don't know if that's 40s or whatever he counts that as, but he's shut in. He's got some health problems, and he's shut in. And he'd been listening to our sermons. I have no idea who he is. He'd stumbled upon us, and he sent us a message thanking us the same week that we put up the video. And he says, it's like life can come into his place. So thank you, Will, for taking this on and having a little technology up here. All right, so here's your sermon for the day. This good old boy from the South. Oh, good old boy from the South. He is sure the world is out to get him. He's just convinced that everything is falling apart. His job is so hard, he has to work with a mean boss, ignorant coworkers, and it doesn't even pay that much anyway. And his best friend since high school never hangs out with him anymore, is barely around. His wife, or really his ex-wife, is always on his case. He thought that divorce would get him out from under her thumb, but she's still always there, and he wouldn't pay any attention, but they had this daughter, and he wants to see the daughter, which becomes even more impossible these days because the darn kid wants to go play on the traveling soccer team. He doesn't know anything about soccer, and Mom expects him to come up with the money. How's he going to do it? So he prays, Jesus, give me a break. He prays, I know I'm not perfect, but I could use a hand here, God. And he listens to his preacher in the old Southern church who says anything is possible with God, and he just wants, not anything, he wants a little something, just any little something. Isn't something possible, God? And you know what he hears back? Nothing. Nothing. You ever hear nothing when you're praying for help? Sometimes I believe, and maybe you believe this, that you pray for something and God answers. God, give me serenity, and you feel calm. Sometimes it works like that. Praise Jesus. But other times, I wish that jerk would get what's coming to him, and God says no. And sometimes, I really want this thing to happen to me, God, and it seems like God answers with a not yet. Or maybe here's something that I think is better for you, which you might agree with way down the road. But the worst is when you seem to pray and God just sits back and thinks about it or takes God's time or tells you not for you, or maybe even sends, it seems like God sends even more pain in your life because you're doing something wrong. So this good old boy isn't sure if God is waiting or angry or saying no or if God is even there. So he gets frustrated. He gets more frustrated, which comes out against his ex-wife, which adds even more stress to their relationship and his relationship with their girl, which gives even more stress, which causes more anger, to where his prayers now sound like, fix it, God, now, or else, which seems to lead to nothing even more, and he pushes back and further away from believing anything. That cycle of spiritual despair that draws him closer and closer to nothing. And if you're like our good old boy, maybe you would sit up later at night in the middle of those cycles, and instead of having your 2 beers, you have 3 beers. Maybe you have 4. This guy, frankly, he doesn't even enjoy sitting up later at night because he used to watch SportsCenter and they would have baseball plays on. He loved watching baseball and football. And now all it is politics and soccer, and I don't know which one's worse. So all he does is sit up and watch politics and soccer and drink another beer he doesn't want. And when he doesn't sit up and he goes out, he tries to go out with his friends, but it's not like that anymore because his old buddy wouldn't come out to the bar anymore, probably because his darn Baptist wife. When he does go out and doesn't stay up, he has to get up in the morning, and his darn boss wants him to switch over his shift from 5/8s to 4/10s, and he doesn't want to do that. What's he going to do on the weekends now? You know, 3 days, he used to go try to see his daughter, now he can't see her. Dang it, God. I'm going to give you one more chance, God. What do I have to do for you to show up in my life? What do I have to do for a miracle to happen? What would be a miracle for him? The widow that Dean read in a pretty obscure story. You could have gone to 100 Sunday schools and you might not have heard that story. The widow in that first story, she probably asked the same kind of question. The details of the story there, and every translation comes a little bit different. Yours said creditor, which is great the way it said it. She's in debt. She's a young mom with kids to care for. She's lonely because her husband just died. Crippling responsibility without support or a job, and the only job that a young woman could get in ancient Israel when her husband died, you know what it is? We don't want to talk about that. The literal hunger, uncertainty about any path forward, probably questioning the details of her faith, and through all that mess, how does God show up? Jars of oil. Jars of oil is it. That's the miracle? The definition of a miracle, traditionally, God intervenes in the normal order of things to supernaturally change things so that some good happens. And if that's what happens here to this widow, God does some magic with some olive oil, which solves a food crisis, maybe gives her a little bit of income to pay the interest for the creditor. Great. Except she's going to get hungry again. She's going to have more bills. That's the way bills work for me. I can pay them one month, they come back the next. What then? Excuse my realism, but if the miracle is just about olive oil, so what? Jesus, my life is falling apart. I need your help. Hanson, look in your pantry. There are 100 Cliff Bars waiting for you to take on the trail. Thanks. Holy Spirit, our church is struggling. It needs new life. It needs you. Church, I am sending you new hymnals. Awesome. The widow could use that oil, but more so, she needs an advocate. She needs her neighbors to know how much she is hurting. She needs something for her boys to do and people to help take care of them because they're going to get in trouble without dad's influence. And through it all, this is just one single mother in one culture, in one time of history. The world has how many single moms that all need taken care of? Where are the miracles for them? Maybe the whole structure of the world needs to be changed so that women are not so easily thrown to the curb. Maybe the world should just be less patriarchal, and maybe there should be laws to protect them or changed ideas so that they don't need protection. And maybe men should get on board first and foremost to change a system in which they are in charge of and mess everything up. Why doesn't God fix that? That would be a miracle. But Elisha shows up, second-tier prophet, half of you never even heard of. He shows up, finally a man who is not there to take advantage of this woman, who clearly connects with her sons somehow and gets her out of the house, gives her some peace. I sense that he must have talked to the neighbors to let them know the news of what's going on, gives them a chance to be involved. And this is just my sanctified imagination, but I have to believe after Elisha left, the oil might not have stopped, the help might not have stopped, the support might not have stopped right there. I have to believe that after he left, the family kept getting help. And maybe she, when she got older and she met other young widows in the situation, maybe she could tell them her story and help out in that. Maybe her sons grew up knowing this was their situation and they told the story or wrote it down and someone else etched it into the history of Hebrew literature, and that lined up with all the other stories about God taking care of widows and orphans and immigrants. And then one day, far down the line, this guy named Jesus is moved by the concept of how God gets involved in regular people's lives as opposed to just God who's fickle and picky and just does miracles here and there. And maybe Jesus preaches about this and his followers become more sensitive to what happens for women in those kind of situations. So the early church creates an order of deacons to take care of hungry widows, and the church accepts and involves women in ways that no culture in the history of the world has ever done. And even though chauvinism continues, the church pushes for 2,000 years against the idea of male dominance, and despite that enduring power of men, the church is a witness for equality and empowerment. Where's the miracle in there? In that whole story, in that thread? Is it magic olive oil? Is it just the right person at the right time? Is it neighbors getting involved when they didn't have to? Is it inspiration that carries over generations? Is it a world that changes, always moving to making it on earth as it is in heaven? Where is the miracle in there? Maybe alongside our traditional definition of a supernatural change, the miracle is less about God intervening and more about the miracle is the natural order of things that looks out for people and shapes a better world and gives us all a role to play. Maybe that is our miracle of ordinary life. And so, in ordinary life, the good old boy from the South, where's his miracle? I made up the story so I can tell the ending however I want. I think sitting up and watching ESPN soccer highlights eventually starts coming into his brain and he understands the game and he has something to talk with his daughter about. And she thinks, oh my gosh, he does care about me because he cares about things I love. And their relationship strengthens. And maybe that frustrating change to his work schedule, which he didn't want, actually it's not so bad because now he can take his daughter on those weekend tournaments. And maybe he can pick up an extra shift when she doesn't have a tournament or go fishing with his old friend, which he does one week. And he finds out his puritanical Baptist wife, she isn't keeping him from having fun. He tells the old boy, actually, I met her at AA, which has made a big difference. If you ever want to come along, come along. I don't see any magic in that story, but I see God's hand. I see God's hand coming through the most regular and normal parts of life, well, we can look out for it all of our days. And you can tell that story as random coincidence and pure luck, which maybe things just worked out for the best the way they did. There's some truth in that. Or we can tell these kind of stories as God looked out for him and the Holy Spirit pushed some buttons and there's a whole series of tiny, indistinguishable miracles. I thought my life has been like that. Or we can tell that story. This is the new phrase I invented this week. For the most part, the things I say to you, I just steal from some theologian or someone over here and jam it together and create something new. Well, I have a new phrase that I think I invented and I want it on my gravestone. Ecclesiastes says there's nothing new under the sun, but under this crazy hair, I think I got a new phrase. And that is, the feeding of the 5,000 and all these stories is the democratization of providence. The democratization of providence. Here's what it means. I believe that God looks out for, and that's what providence means, provideo, God looks out for. I believe that God looks out for us. And I have no problem with that including things that I can't explain. As liberal and logical as I am, I leave plenty of room for the idea that some forces have a way of wiggling out what we don't expect and things happening that shouldn't have happened that make a big difference. I'm okay with that. But even more so, I believe in a world, I have strong faith in the idea that God watches out for us through the power that we all have. That's democracy, the power that we all have. God looks out for us through the power that we all have to look out for each other. In other words, God's miracles, they might be a lightning bolt, they might be cured cancer, they might be a car accident avoided or whatever it might be, but even more so, the miracle of life is the inspired order of living together, supporting each other in ways that shift life and change the whole world. The democratization of providence. So maybe also on that field packed with thousands of people waiting to hear from Jesus, maybe Jesus had some magic power and multiplied the loaves and the fishes and voila. Maybe. And then they got hungry and they walked home. And you know what happens when families are hungry and they're walking home is they fought and they fought and they fought and they fought and they forgot everything that Jesus told them. Or maybe, even more holy, maybe when that generous little boy offered his fish and his loaves, Jesus told the story of the little boy. And he used that to inspire others to share their picnics with people who didn't bring anything, which amazingly it worked. And the disciples saw it work. The disciples trusted Jesus, but they sure didn't trust regular people like us. We're just simple, broken people who mess up all the time. But all of a sudden they see that Jesus inspired them to be something more. And so they started to trust, and this is the wonder. They started to trust people like us. And so they built a church around people like us. Which one is more miraculous to you? Which kind of world do you want to trust in? One where God intervenes sometimes in the natural order, other times not, with random magic tricks that may feed some people some of the time? Or do you want to believe in God's natural order is the thing that we can all care for all the people all the time, which we're called to do? I choose a world in which God is not separate and not sprinkled into certain ingredients, absent from others. I choose to believe in a world where God is not just some religious spice rack that gets put into different recipes, but if I choose instead a world where God is the whole pantry from which love and beauty and wonder and calling all come from different jars and boxes through different hands, whenever we are called, and we are always called to make the world a better place. The democratization of providence. It means that God works through little boys and widows and prophets and broken families and even you. May that be our good news today, and may you trust in that good news today. Amen.